Welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going to discuss procrastination. It's a word that I struggle to get out of my mouth, but we are going to discuss procrastination, whether or not I can pronounce it properly or not. And we're going to discover a life hack, how we can really own whether or not we delay stuff and avoid stuff, or whether or not we get stuff done, because it's a simple psychological equation that will either hold us back from doing the stuff that we really want to do that's going to get us frustrated if we don't do it, or whether or not we engage with the psychological equation for life that allows us to move forward and get those tasks done that maybe we've been avoiding and pushing off for some time. If you like this video, please like it and please subscribe to the channel so you can get all notifications for all future upcoming videos. Procrastination is a major subject to be discussed because we all want to achieve stuff. And I always say that life is about being a creator. It's like being a creator. It's about taking those invisible ideas in our head and getting them out of our head and getting them into the real world. It's about creating those visions, those ideas, those projects that we have in our mind that make us feel good, that make us feel inspired and make us feel excited by life. It's about getting them out of here and making them tangible, making them real, outputting them from what's in here. And that's where there's a lot of struggles for a lot of people in that kind of department of achieving, of getting stuff done, because they just can't seem to get it out of here. Now, there could be many reasons why a person is struggling to get stuff done. We've discussed this in previous videos. It could be their beliefs. If they've got a belief that whatever they try is never going to work or they're not capable, well, that's going to be a real stumbling block. That's going to be a real roadblock in holding them back for getting stuff done. Before we even deal with the concept of procrastination, we've got to make sure that, do we believe that we can get this done? Do we have the right strategy? Are we taking care of ourselves? You know, I say this a lot. Many times what's holding a person back isn't just their psychology, right? Not that their mindset and their beliefs and having the right strategy. If you haven't got the right energy levels, you're never going to be able to get stuff done because you haven't got the energy to go and get that stuff done. And a lot of times that will come down to our sleeping habits. Right? If you're going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning because we're busy on Netflix or TikTok or whatever it might be, and we're exhausted the next day, that's going to have an impact on our emotional state. And if we're not in a good place, we go back to that simple equation that I talk about the whole time, like a broken record. You know, our thoughts are going to impact our feelings, and our feelings are going to impact our behaviors. So if we haven't had enough sleep, chances are when we're tired, we're going to have the thinking of, I'm too tired to do this, which is going to make us feel very unenergized. That's even a word. And that's going to have an impact on what we do, which is going to be, we're probably not going to do much because we don't have the energy. So just getting a good night's sleep can have a major impact positively on what we do. You know, I remember when I deal with couples, sometimes I go to their sleeping habits. You know, I'm like, how much sleep are you actually getting? Right? They're struggling to do what they know they should do, and we've cleared all the roadblocks and used the intention principle. And sometimes I'm like, are you guys getting enough sleep? Are you guys getting enough self-care? Because if you're not giving yourself enough self-care and enough sleep and you're not eating the right foods, then you're going to struggle to do good stuff and to get great stuff done. So there could be many roadblocks that's holding someone back from getting that stuff in here, those invisible ideas, and making them visible, the challenge of life to become a creator. But assuming that's not an issue, assuming that we've dealt with our beliefs and we're sleeping well and we're taking care of our bodily needs and we're giving ourselves some self-care and we're not exhausted with life and exhausted with everything that's going on, then we're going to go to, with that assumption, we're going to deal with what I call the equation of procrastination, because as I said, it is so important that we have the feeling and the knowledge and the ability to be able to take what's in here and make it real. So a lot of people feel that they are a procrastinator, right? There's something wrong with them and they just can't seem to get stuff done. So I want to tackle that first and say that's absolute nonsense. Just like I discussed on the videos of making decisions, some people say, well, I can't make decisions, but that's just entirely not true. You made a decision this morning to get up, you made a decision to get dressed, you made a decision to have breakfast, you made a decision to go to work. There just might be some decisions that you are struggling with. As I've discussed also in the self-praise video, we kind of put ourselves into this black and white thinking, right? It's like we've got one or two boxes to tick. I either am a caring person or not a caring person. I'm either a compassionate person or not a compassionate person. I'm either a growing person or not a growing person. I'm either a healthy person or not a healthy person. Life isn't black and white. It's a scale. Where are we on this scale between being unhealthy to healthy, and how we're going to improve it. So the same is with procrastination, right? The question is, how much do we procrastinate? Not that we are this title of a procrastinator. That's not the way we want to think, because as soon as we start thinking, well, I'm a procrastinator, there's not much we can do because that's who we are. We don't want to put that on our identity, because that's going to then filter our experiences. That's a belief. And that belief then goes back to that equation of our belief, our thinking is going to impact our feeling, which is going to impact our behavior. So if we believe that we're a procrastinator, that's going to make us feel that we're not capable and we can't get stuff done. That's going to make us feel unempowered, right? We're not going to feel empowered. We're going to feel very uncertain that we can get the stuff done. And that uncertainty is going to play out in the actions that we take, which is probably going to mean we're going to avoid the tasks, or we're going to do a half-hearted attempt, which is going to which is going to reaffirm that original belief. See, I can't get stuff done. There's something wrong with me. There's nothing wrong with you. You are getting stuff done. There just might be certain areas that you are struggling with to really get those tasks off the ground. So I think it's really important, before we share the equation, right? The equation of why people procrastinate, we've got to get rid of this kind of identity that some people put around themselves or put on themselves, that I'm a procrastinator, right? There's something inherently wrong with me. It's in my genes, or it's just, just something I've been infected with through my life experiences, that I'm a procrastinator. Because it's just not true. If you take a look at your life right now, if we all take a look at our life right now, we'll see that we've got many things done. There are things that we do, and it's about upgrading again that scale. Let's not put ourselves in a black and white box of either we get stuff done or we don't get stuff done. That's not the way to think. The way to think is, I get stuff done. The question is, how can I increase that level of getting stuff done so I can become more of a doer and less of a procrastinator? But not that we have this identity that we are we're just a procrastinator. No, we procrastinate. It's a big difference, and that distinction makes a massive difference again on that equation, because that is going to create a thinking of, well, I can do this if I understand what's holding me back, which is going to create a feeling of feeling certain, feeling empowered, which is then going to play out in our actions, which is again going to reaffirm that maths equation for life in a positive way. So just have a think about it for a second. How do you view yourself in regards to the fact that you might be struggling with some tasks? Do you put a label on yourself that there's something inherently wrong with yourself? Or are you able to recognize, which is great, that life is a scale. Life is a journey, right? It's a marathon, not a 100-meter sprint, right? It's a journey. And through that journey, we're going to increase our levels in lots of different areas, with our kindness, with our compassion, with our humility, with our productivity. And it's about learning new skills, new mindsets, increasing those muscles of emotional intelligence, and building up our ability to achieve more and more and more and more. So how do we view ourselves in the sense of that we're struggling to get certain tasks done? And are we giving ourselves enough credit for the stuff that we have done in the past and the stuff that we're currently doing in everyday life? So let's just have a quick think about that. And then we're going to discuss the equation that is holding people back from getting certain tasks done. The equation, the life hack when it comes to stop procrastinating and start achieving even more. So I want to share what this equation is, this life hack when it comes to procrastinating. And it's going to determine whether or not we move towards those tasks and get them done, or we avoid them like the plague. And there's an example that I like to use to really bring it out, but I'll share what the equation is first. The simple equation is that we look to avoid pain and we look to get pleasure. We look to avoid pain and we look to get pleasure. And this plays out in the dieting, the Mind Diet course that I've got on this YouTube channel, which you can check out. The reason why so many people struggle with losing weight is because even though there's an element of pain in being in the body that they are, and there's an element of pleasure they think in losing weight, they associate even more pain to the idea of not having their pastries. There is so much pleasure for them in having those pastries and those cookies and those sweets and the chocolate and midnight feasts and all that kind of stuff, and going to parties and the alcohol, that even though there's an element of pain in staying the way they are and there's an element of pleasure in getting the body they want, there is far more pain in not getting all the treats and sweets and sugary stuff, and therefore it becomes a tug of war. So they're trying to get momentum when they don't have enough motivation, because they're more motivated by this pain and pleasure equation to have the pastries than they are to not have them. And I know when I was on that journey, when I was trying to lose a significant amount of weight, until I re-change my mindset until I started associating so much pain to the pastries and to the chocolate, and I started associating so much pleasure to not eating it and so much pleasure to getting the body that I wanted, and associating a lot of pain in staying where I was. It was a real tug of war, and it was like a yo-yo, and it was very frustrating, going up and down, losing weight, gaining weight, losing weight, gaining weight. But once I shifted my mindset, my association to what I associated to those pastries, it became a lot easier. Now it's not a battle. If I see a donut, yeah, I mean, I'd like to have a donut, but I'd much prefer not to eat it. I'd much prefer to have the body that I have, and sometimes I'll treat myself. I don't deprive myself, but overall, generally, I'm not eating that stuff anymore, and it's not even a battle. It's not like, oh, I really want it, but I shouldn't because I'm not. No, it's just I don't want it. Just don't want it. It doesn't speak to me like it used to because I've shifted the whole pain and pleasure equation. And it plays out in every area of life when it comes to something that we are struggling with. And I'm going to bring out an example that I always use in my workshops because it really brings it out in such clarity. And that is to do with homework, right? Homework. So I always say to the workshop that I'm running, if this topic ever comes up, and I say to them, tell me, who here is the type of person, when they get their homework, they do it the night they get it? And a few people put up their hand. Majority of people don't do it the night they get it. So only a few people put up their hand. We call them the goody-goodies. They get it done that night. And I say, right, who is the type of person who doesn't do it that night they get it, and they leave it to the night before and have an all night and all the stress and all the tension, but they finally get it done? And a lot more people put up their hand, right? And then there's a few people who don't do it at all. I used to be one of those people in school and never got my homework done, which I'm going to show you how I've changed that kind of mindset and behavior that I used to have. So I say to the people the goody-goodies who get it done that night, I say, tell me, what's your personal narrative? What's the personal narrative that you have about the homework? And they typically will say to me, Joe, having that homework sitting in my head, knowing that it's not done the whole week, is too much for me. That's too much pain. And I can't deal with the stress of having to do an all-nighter. I want the freedom to know that it's done. So I do it straight away. Is it a pain to do the homework? Do I necessarily want to do the homework? No, there's an element of pain in doing it, but the pain of not getting it done is far greater than the pain of getting it done. So you can see where they're associating the pain. They're associating a lot more pain to not getting it done. And the pleasure that they want is this feeling of freedom. They want freedom. They want to be able to spend the next 2 weeks or a week, or whatever the deadline is, just enjoying themselves without this pressure in their head, I've got to do the homework, I've got to do the homework, and pushing it off and then having an all-nighter. And then I go to the people who do it the night before. I say, tell me, what's your personal narrative? And they'll say to me, I just can't think about doing the homework. I just want to do what I want to do and not have to do that stuff that I don't really want to do, but I know that I have to. So where are they associating the pain? They're associating so much more pain to getting it done. And where are they putting on the pleasure? They're putting on the pleasure that they don't have to do it now, and they also want an element of freedom in being able to do what they want immediately, because they're not focusing 2 weeks from now. But what shifts for them? Well, the night before, their whole equation shifts. Now they start stating, 1 second, even though I don't want to do the homework and I really want my freedom, but the pain of not getting this homework done, I'm going to get into trouble in school or in university, and this is going to have an impact on my grades and my ability to get into the university that I want, or whatever it might be. That reshifts the whole equation, and therefore they spend a whole night getting it done. And that is the only difference between them. It's the same homework, but it's where they're shifting their focus. It's where they're putting their focus. Is where they're associating the freedom. One person's associating freedom to, I want the freedom to know that it's done, no stress, no tension, and I want to have the next 2 weeks or week without it on my mindset. And the other one's thinking, they're focusing on the homework. They're not focusing on what they're going to get if they get the homework done. They're focusing immediately on the task, and therefore they avoid it. The goody-goodies are focusing on, they're thinking future ahead. They're thinking, what am I going to feel if I get this done? And those who don't do it are focusing on, what am I going to feel if I start doing this? And therefore they avoid it. And therefore, in reality, they experience a lot more stress. And they're never really truly free because it's still on their mind. Even though they're doing the stuff that they want to do, it's still in the back of their mind, I haven't done the homework, and then they have to do the all-nighter. And what's the impact of doing an all-nighter? If you're married and you've got kids, that stress, that tension, how do the people around you suffer when we do an all-nighter? So what the difference between people is not that one person is a procrastinator with this title and this identity, and another person just has these magical genes and biology that they can get stuff done. It all comes down to where we're focusing our pain and pleasure. And typically, those who struggle to get stuff done, they focus on the task. They focus on the pain of the task. And those who get stuff done, they focus on the pleasure that they're going to get when they get the task done and the pain that they're going to feel if they don't get it done. It's a completely different personal narrative that will shift or make the motivation that we have or we don't have. And I can personally resonate with this. I can tell you, not embarrassed, in school, I didn't do my homework. I didn't do an all-nighter the night before. I literally did not do my homework. I didn't quite see the point of learning algebra. I don't know about you, when was the last time I went into a shop and I had to use algebra to figure out if I could afford the stuff that I want to buy or how much it was going to come to, or last time I got into a car and I had to get out a map and figure out how to get to the local shop or the local shopping center. I'm not going to tell my kids that. I tell my kids they still got to go to school. It's good for their brain. It's good. It develops them. So hopefully my kids are not watching this. But I wasn't motivated in school because there was just so much pain in getting stuff done that I saw as completely useless, and there was no pleasure in getting it done. And there was a lot more pleasure on playing on my Palm Pilot. Yeah, I'm from the older generation where I was the cool kid. I had this Palm Pilot and this massive Game Boy. How times have changed. I much prefer to do that, or play football, or speak to a friend. I had a lot more pleasure playing my Nintendo. Yeah, the good old days. So I never did the homework, but I haven't stayed that way because I recently completed my psychology degree. Now, a psychology degree is far more work than my maths tests and my maths exams and all that stuff. So what shifted for me? The only thing that shifted for me was my motivation. And my motivation was shifted by where I associated the pain and pleasure. First of all, I actually wanted to do my psychology degree. I actually enjoyed it. So that automatically, I'm associating a lot of pleasure in getting it done and a lot of pain if I don't get it done, because if I don't get it done, I'm not going to be able to qualify and go on to the next level. So there was a lot of pain of not getting it done. But even within that pleasure and pain that I was associating, I still could have done it the night before. But I associated so much pain to not getting it done and so much pleasure to getting it done, because I said to myself, again, how am I going to feel if I get it done? I'm going to be stress-free. And I can't afford to be stressed when I've got a family and I also have to work. So I associated so much pain to not getting the task done. And I associated so much pleasure that I would feel when I got it done that overall, 9 times out of 10, the week before the assignment was due, I was just looking it over. I wasn't writing my essay. I was just checking it. I was rereading it just to make sure that I was generally happy with it. There was no obvious spelling mistakes or grammatical mistakes, whatever it might be. So, and I was generally relaxed. I can only think of maybe 1 or 2 assignments out of 30 that I did where I had to leave it to the last minute because there might be things that got in the way. But generally, I got stuff done. Now, you know, if you look at my past, I was not one of those goody-goodies. I never got stuff done, right? I never got academic stuff done. But all of a sudden with my degree, I was the goody-goody. What shifted? Nothing changed in my biology. I didn't inherit some new genes. What changed was this equation. I understood the equation and I made it work for me so that I could have a stress-free experience through university while making sure that I didn't experience stress, which would then impact my work and impact my kids and impact my family life and me personally. I didn't want to experience a stressful university experience. I wanted to enjoy it. I wanted to get the best result and I wanted to get the stuff done while enjoying all the other areas of my life. So it all comes down to this equation where we associate the pain and where we associate the pleasure. So I was recently talking to someone who's trying to get a big project off the ground. It was a big project. And why hasn't he done anything in 2-3 years? Because I asked him, what's your personal narrative? And he starts talking about there's so much work to be done and it's going to involve hours and hours and hours and hours of work and I don't have the funds to necessarily get specialist advice. I said, well, look where you're associating, look where you're putting all the narrative. You're putting all the narrative on the pain of the task. So I started asking new questions. How are you going to feel 5 years from now if you don't get this project off the task, this financial project? And he thought about it. I'm going to feel awful. I said, what's going to happen if someone else comes out with this project before you? What are you going to say to yourself? How much regret are you going to feel? And he started to feel it. And I said, how much pleasure are you going to get? How is this going to impact you financially? How much is it going to impact your confidence? How much is it going to impact your whole life? How much is it going to impact your family if you do get this off the ground and it makes more money than your 9-to-5 job is making? And he lit up, right? He was like, this is going to be amazing. It's going to be incredible. I said, so now we're associating pain to not getting it done and pleasure to what we're going to feel if we start getting it done. And then I shared my life hack of doing one task. Only focus on one task. You can't focus, if you've got a 1,000-hour project, if you focus on the 1,000 hours, your mind is going to explode. You're going to have steam coming out your ears because your mind can only focus on one task at one time. What is the very next step? So always what I tell people in business, people who are housewives or guys at home, whatever it might be, what is the next task? Not what's the next 10 tasks, because your brain can't deal with it. What's the next task? And he came back the next week and he said to me, for the first time in 3 years, he actually got stuff done on the project. He was speaking to people, he started spending time because he had shifted his narrative. He was stopped focusing on all the pain of the tasks and he started focusing on the pain if he doesn't do it. And he started focusing on the pleasure of getting stuff done. So if we want to get more stuff done and we want to stop avoiding certain tasks, we have to ask ourselves, what is the personal narrative that we have regarding those tasks? And chances are we're focusing on how difficult the task is if we're not getting that stuff done. If we're avoiding those tasks, chances are we're focusing on how painful it's going to be, the problems that we're going to have, how much work there is to do. No one's going to want to do that. No one's going to want to do that. Because why would we want to put ourselves in a situation that's going to be painful? So if we want to start shifting that, we have to start focusing on 1 second. Let's break it down so it's manageable. How pleasurable is it going to feel if I get the first hour done of this 1,000-hour task? What am I going to feel like 5 years from now or 2 years from now when I finally got it done? In a good way. And what am I going to feel negatively if I don't get it done and someone else comes out with it before me? What's my life going to look like if I do get it done and if I don't get it done? So now we're focusing on the outcome as much as we're focusing and managing the tasks in a way that it becomes pleasurable. We've got to make it pleasurable. We can't make things painful. If things are painful for us, we're not going to want to do it, which is why when I talk about the mind diet, I believe I mentioned in the course that if we're trying to lose weight and we're doing exercises that we hate, we're putting in a whole block of pain, right? Going on a journey of improving our physical health, it's challenging. It becomes a lot easier when we have the right associations, but it's still challenging, like any change. And if we're doing an exercise, which is a key part, as you know, it's mightily important that we watch what we eat more than actual exercise. But exercising is very important, especially if you want to tone up and muscle up. If you're doing exercise that you hate, your brain, the immediate association is, oh, I can't be bothered doing that. So I always say, do things that you like. Do things that you like. Otherwise, you're putting this massive stumbling block of pain in front of you. And I know through my circumstances, through my recent divorce, my energy levels and my schedules have changed, and I used to do a lot of weightlifting, and I don't necessarily have the mindset to do that, but I want to work out. So there was about 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks where I wasn't working out, and I said, well, I need to do something that I enjoy. So I started rollerblading, I started learning self-defense, squash. I changed my whole exercise routine to something that I found more enjoyable at the moment than weightlifting, because weightlifting at the moment just doesn't appeal to me, even though it appealed to me for many, many years. So I made sure that the exercise that I wanted to do, there was a lot of pleasure involved, because with the weightlifting, currently it just doesn't speak to me. I just see it as painful, it's going to use up a lot of energy, and I just got no interest. So if we want to get stuff done, we've got to ask ourselves a question: where are we associating the pain and where are we associating the pleasure? Are we focusing on the task? Are we focusing on the outcome? There are many times where I'm about to record a video and I'm thinking, oh, I'm not sure if I'm in the mood, because you've got to be in the mood to sit down in front of a camera and talk to yourself, right? I'm just going to be honest. You've got to be in the mood. You don't want to do this when you're tired or you're hungry. You've got to be in the mood, sit in front of a camera and talk to yourself, not knowing if anyone's going to watch your video. So you've got to be in the mood. But sometimes you also have to get yourself in the mood. So I start asking myself the question, how am I going to feel when I get the next video? What's it going to feel like when I upload it to YouTube? What's it going to feel like when I get 30, 50, 100, 200 views? And I know that hopefully somehow this has added value to someone that I've never met. Oh, now I'm feeling in the mood. So we can't just be relying on our mood. You know, we've got to sometimes get ourselves in the mood. We've got to get ourselves motivated, right? I mean, there's sometimes I'm just never going to record a video, and that'll be very late at night because I'm not a night person. I'm not going to do it the second I get out of bed, and I'm not going to do it if I'm hungry. But there are many opportunities where we're maybe not in the mood because we're focusing on the task and we're not focusing on the outcome, and we're associating the pain and the pleasure completely wrong, and we have to reshift that. We have to rejiggle it. So if we want to become less of a procrastinator, if we want to stop procrastinating, because we're not a procrastinating person, but we've built maybe a habit of pushing things away based upon our thinking, based upon our focus, based upon our association of where we're putting the pain and where we're putting the pleasure. If we want to become less of that type of person and build up on that scale, more of a doing person, more of a person who achieves, more of a person who gets stuff done, then we've got to own this equation. So let's ask ourselves, think about a task. I asked you to think about a task that you're struggling with to get done. What's the personal narrative that you have for yourself? Where are you associating the pain? What are you focusing on primarily? Are you focusing on how much work it's going to be? Are you focusing on the fact that you're worried it might not turn out? I mean, that's all the pain. It's all negativity. Of course, you're not going to put everything into something you don't believe is going to turn out. Let's start focusing on what happens if it does turn out. Let's start focusing on getting advice from people who can help us to make sure that it does turn out, that we got the right strategy. Where are we focusing the pleasure? Are we focusing the pleasure on doing something else, going on YouTube or reading a book or just getting indulged in life and survival? Or are we focusing on how we're going to feel if we get this stuff done? Taking that invisible and becoming a creator and putting it out in the real world. How's that going to make us feel? It's going to make us feel alive. It's going to make us feel maybe a sense of contribution, a sense of achievement. It's going to make us feel empowered in an incredible way. So where is our current association to the pain and pleasure equation that either pushes us to get stuff done or holds us back? And if we want to stop avoiding stuff and start getting stuff done, then we've got to build a truckload of association of pain to not getting it done by focusing on what we're going to feel like if we don't get it done. And we've got to start focusing a lot of pleasure as to what's going to happen if we do get it done. What's it going to feel like? But also to make sure that those tasks are manageable. Because if we're going into a task that's got a lot of work and it's an overload, that's just going to be a painful experience. We've got to start chunking those tasks. What's my very first next step? How am I going to feel when I get that first next step done? Many times people say to me, they're trying to clean up the house. They're trying to do like a massive clean up of the house. And the thought of cleaning up the whole house just makes them feel overwhelmed. And while it's painful the way the house is, and they're going to feel an element of pleasure of getting it done, the pain of thinking of all the rooms and all the corners and under the beds and under the sofas, it's too painful for them. So I say, whoa, let's chunk it. What's the easiest room that you could clean in the quickest amount of time? And they pick a room. I say, how are you going to feel if you get that one room done? And they say, I'm going to feel good. I'm going to feel good. I said, go and do it. If you go and do that, you'll solve it. And they go and do it. And they come back and say, Joe, I found once I did that room, I then asked myself the question, what's my next room? And then I did that. I chunked it. I made it manageable so it became a pleasurable experience because I felt like I can, and feeling I can is a pleasurable state of being to be in. So if we associate the right pleasure and we associate the right pain, we still got to make sure that those tasks are manageable. Because if we're giving ourselves unmanageable tasks, it's going to make us feel overwhelmed, and that's a painful place to be, painful emotion to experience. And therefore, that's also going to hold us back. But I got a whole video of how to make sure that we don't get overwhelmed, which you can check out if you want to go into more detail. So hopefully this will help you, and hopefully this has kind of brought some light into how we can get more stuff done. There's nothing in your genes. You're not a procrastinator. There's not in your genes. It's a scale. And the question is, can we improve that scale? Can we become more of a doer and less of a person who avoids? The answer is yes, if we change our associations, which we can. So go away, try it out, change the narrative, get the right associations, and see the change it will make in you becoming more of a creator by taking what's in here and making it a reality in the world outside of you.